here. That's the only reason. I spotted you as a cheap date
Well,
many moons ago.
you were already an expensive date. The fucking travel cost to get there is, but it's worth it.
Well, I don't see my bowl of only red Skittles or my other things that were on my binder.
It's called a rider. And we need we should have a rider for these people that to make them feel good. You want bottled water, you want tea, Coke.
That's right.
We used to do all that with the musical acts. We had all the Texas country guys coming around. Started in Marion at the beer garden, and these guys would have a rider. And kind of the first step of the rider is just to start marking X's on all the crap that they want. So they eventually get. I mean, if you've got liquor there and food, it's like, hey, you got all this. You got an open bar. Do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But long and short of it, today we're with Rooster Vance out of Texas, wholesaling land.
Yeah, baby.
That's what he does. And I am Tommy Bonner. It's his Business Under Fire. We're doing, I own restaurants and do some real estate stuff and development. So Rooster buys land in a unique way that he's going to talk about today. And probably a good reason of why I'm building some airplane hangars at this airport that we're at is because I had spoke with Rooster and some of my business stuff and got into a deal with 2 pieces of land that we're going to go over today because it applies to how he's doing things, and maybe it'll introduce you guys into a way of getting into land. So I guess give us a rundown of what you do and then how you are acquiring properties.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let me take a step back. Land is the foundation of everything. Every real estate deal, right, is everything. Yeah. So even people that are in the house and apartment business, whatever, they got to understand land to an extent, right? So land is in every real estate deal there's in. That's why I got into it. But yeah, I have a different approach to the land business than most people do. There are, and I'm not the only one doing it. I've had mentors, and there's other guys doing it. Right? We're modeling, somebody else's business. We're not, recreating.
You're not reinventing the wheel. This has been done before.
Yeah, except for adding in my touch on the social media advertising and branding the way I do it. Right? And we'll talk about that. But so as a wholesaler, you might understand a wholesaler. Some of y'all know what wholesaling real estate or wholesaling houses might be.
What is wholesaling real estate? And that includes houses, apartments, building. What is wholesaling real estate?
Positioning yourself as a wholesaler in the real estate market is basically like becoming a pawn shop for real estate, right? It's the guys that are out there going, we buy houses, we buy land, we buy real estate. Cash now, right? And so we position ourselves through branding and marketing, and we do mail campaigns, right? We push ourselves onto the market as somebody who can get you fast cash for your property, right? So so we market to people in probate, for divorce, death, right? Tax delinquencies, pre-foreclosures. We really we bombard that whole sector with our marketing and branding, but then we also do some different things to put ourselves out there that don't necessarily just leave us in a position to only be buying from distressed sellers. Because a lot of times wholesalers in general, especially with houses, they get a bad rap because they kind of target distressed sellers, right, in a predatory type of a way. Well, in land, we don't necessarily have to do that. We are looking to find somebody who's not necessarily realtored up, so to speak, right? On a farmer or a rancher who's ready to just sell for cash, and we can pick it up at a little bit of a discount from retail.
And they say the best way to make money on real estate, you make it all buying it.
All right, it's buying it. Right?
And so whether anybody wants to tell you that they're trying to get the best deal on the real estate or not, that's what you're trying to do.
That's all I do. Yeah, we buy right. In the beginning, we have equity when we close on it, and so we can do several different things. Sometimes I don't even close on it. I'll create a contract for a property that has so much equity that I can just sell the contract to another investor.
Which is exactly what I did on these properties that I have. I've got
Come
a
on.
contract on it. So for those that don't know, once you get a contract on a property, you control the property.
Control the property.
And so if you were looking at a house, you found a house, you're scrolling the internet, you go, man, that house is $250K. I think that thing's worth $350. You can literally go put that house under contract for $100. They might want $500. They might want $1,000. But you set it for a 90-day closing, and if that buyer agrees to it and you find a buyer within that 90 days, you can flip that contract over to another buyer.
Yeah.
And there's people that do that all the
All the
time.
time.
And that's what I'm doing on an airplane hangar. I have a property. We put it under a contract for X amount. That contract, this guy will get paid when we go to closing, a new contract, and it's done.
That's right, and it really helps for people to understand kind of the anatomy of a wholesale transaction, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to, you can not just be a wholesaler to apply that to a transaction or to be able to find an opportunity where there wouldn't otherwise be one, right? And so
You hit on the word opportunity that I don't think people understand. Average Joe buys, 1 to 4 houses in their lifetime.
Right.
And it is just this easy. If you see a house, a piece of land, an apartment complex for X amount, you call that realtor or the owner and you put it under contract.
That's it.
It's not going to cost you jack shit.
That's
and
it.
then you get to work finding the buyer.
That's right, and that's why I teach these people to change their, like, I have a program where I teach people to do it, right? These are people come to me with nothing. They've lost everything or they've never established themselves. They don't have college. They don't have time or money for college. I teach them the skill of wholesaling within a few weeks, few months, and they're able to go out there and put some deals together, find some deals that they can flip to an investor and start making, very good money. So it's a great business, It's a way for people. If you've ever seen advertising out there where people say, hey, you can flip houses or buy real estate with zero money.
Yeah.
This is one of the methods they're talking about. And they say, well, let me introduce you to wholesaling because this is how you get into real estate with no money. And it's the truth. It's starting at the bottom.
It is the truth.
It is.
I just keep going back to my example because it's the most recent one.
Right.
I did this real estate transaction with $100.
Yeah, dude.
I control this entire project
Yeah.
for $100, and the customer, the seller is happy. Everybody is happy, and you can do that the same way, whether it's on what kind of examples.
So when you talk about controlling a large deal for $100, we'll get into it. I'll talk about a couple I've done, but a very good friend of mine recently, within the last year and a half, did a wholesale deal where he was working his other job, and a man doing business at that job said, hey, man, I just inherited this 100 acres. It's out by the Formula One racetrack, right?
That's a good spot.
Man, he said, I think it's worth $10 million. Well, my buddy had been studying wholesaling. He's only done a couple of deals. He says, oh, it's worth $10 million. I know some guys who might buy that. He goes, oh, yeah, if you can get me $10 million, done deal, right? And so my buddy says, all right, well, I'll call you tomorrow. So he gets on the phone, starts taking offers on this property, right? And he just got a real estate license, but he's doing this as a wholesaler at this point. He didn't need the license for this transaction in any way. He found a buyer that offered him 12.6.
Holy crud.
Right, and so he went back to the guy and said, okay, here's a contract for $10 million. Zero earnest money on that contract.
Not a dime.
Not a dime. $10 million. The guy said, oh, okay. His 30-day closing. And he and then created a sell contract for the same day that he's supposed to buy it.
Yep.
Right, so this would be a double closing rather than selling the contract. He bought and sold it on the same day, but used pass-through funding in Texas. And you don't even have to pay the $10 million because they'll call the 12.6 into escrow and just use that to pass
And
it
for all
through.
that don't know, he's talking about this is all done at the title company.
All at the title
They
company.
they do this stuff often. They know how to structure it.
Absolutely.
And it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a real deal.
No, it's being there. It's consistently positioning yourself, right, to be there when the people need to sell their property.
So
and so that's what we do. you
yeah,
know?
money is made when problems are solved.
That's it. We're solving problems for people. Whether last year we did 2 deals. Actually, okay, the 3 biggest deals we did. I did a 2,000-acre ranch outside of Abilene. All right, it was listed for $3.4 million. One of my students called him up, got in a negotiation, got the deal contracted at 2.1 million. Mind you, it's 2,000 acres, so just over $1,000 an acre. Okay, a generational Texas cattle ranch. These were 4 heirs that were fighting. This property had been up for sale for a year and a half. No movement. We got it under contract for 2.1, and we sold the contract for 2.5. So we made $400,000 on that deal. The title company took care of it. My student and I split the 400,000 because he found it and I sold it.
And this is a thing that really has almost no risk to it.
It really,
you are
if you write
legally,
the contract correctly.
Yeah, there's nothing to it. You're just bringing a buyer to a seller, and you're the middle guy.
Yeah, it's.
But people don't believe it.
People don't believe it. But the thing is that time is the only thing that's worth more than money, right? And so when you have somebody, we did 2 deals last year. The other 2, that one was as far as the 3 biggest ones. The one was the fighting heirs. The other 2 were people that both had come down with cancer and had a limited amount of time to live. We're talking people in their 70s and 80s. They own 100 acres. It's been listed for a year at $2 million, or it hasn't been listed and they don't want to deal with it. They don't have time for it. And it's like the first person through the door with $1 million and a contract is going to pick this up, And so we send out mailers. I have a VA doing cold calling. So we pull data lists of people who have owned over 40 to a few hundred acres in a county. They've owned it for over 20 years. It's all equity, and we just start mailing or calling them. And hey, guys, would you like an opportunity to sell your land now cheaply for cash, or potentially we can do it a higher price if you give us seller financing, and then we're able to get into multi-million-dollar land deals that will subdivide with just $100 or $200 grand down, leverage our way into a huge land deal.
If they'll owner finance it for a period of time, so you're just making them payments while you break that up.
Yeah, and then we'll do what's called a partial release, so that each time we say we've got by 100 acres on finance and we break it up into 10-acre spots, as we sell them, we will pay off a certain dollar per acre pre-agreed upon towards the original balance, and they will partially release the lien. They will release that as we sell the tracts.
All written up prior to even closing.
And the old man shakes on it, and everybody's happy, and he's getting his money. And a seller finance deal, they might get their money over 2-3 years, which breaks up the tax implication, right? And so they like that also, because a lot of these old guys, they're just done with the land. They don't need the money, right? They're just like, all right, I'll sell it. So and it's nice, I have friends that do it with houses, and it's very emotional because you're talking about the roofs over people's heads, right? And people in distress. But when we're talking about land, this is much more transactional. It's not, there's no emotions in it. You cold call somebody on their land and you say, hey, buddy, you have 50 acres out there on Highway 35. Would you be interested in selling it? And 9 out of 10 times they say, for the right price.
Yeah.
And you get into a conversation with them. Every once in a while they'll holler at you. But that's why I have my students doing it for me now, because I paid my dues already.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good business. It's a way to pick up the real estate to where we have equity going into our deals, which makes it easy to raise money for the deals.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have a good loan to value.
Well, it makes me think about, I own some bars up in Lubbock, Texas, there's a bunch of college kids. So I'm around people that are 18 to 25 that, got their heads spinning with ideas and ideas. And it seems like everybody, even since we were younger, their ideas, let's go flip a house. Let's go flip a house. And I actually have a guy that wants me to go stand on the courthouse steps to go try to buy some houses. And they want me to do that like tomorrow. Well, the thing is, and he's going to pay me to do it, and I might if I have time. However, this is that method of buying a house sight unseen and spending X amount of dollars on it is more risky than the way that you're talking about doing it.
Absolutely.
And people they just don't believe it.
They don't believe it. And that side of the business I understand too. I have very good friends that stand at the Bexar County and the Travis County auctions first Tuesday of every month.
Yeah.
In fact, I introduce you before, if you're going to go do it down there. I have a friend, Logan Bentley Fulmer. He's out there. He's out of San Antonio. He now lives in Alamo Heights. He's from Temple originally. Very successful, self-made guy who teaches a class on distressed property acquisition. and if you go to the Bexar County auction, here's the thing. Let me
He's
tell
there
you.
with both hands in the air.
Yeah, he's there with both hands in the air, and so is not just him, but these guys that they're not bidding blind. You see, most of these guys have been on the phone with the people that owned those houses already, walked it even perhaps, and couldn't make a deal. And so they're not bidding blind. These guys tried to buy it before the auction.
Oh, because they could have, yeah.
Yeah, so you're competing with these guys that have systems and processes built in, and they have cheap money.
And they're in every city.
And they're in every city.
And there might be a buddy works out of Old Nate. Shout out to Nate. He's a 27-year-old guy that's just kicking ass. Closed 50 houses last year. You know, when you're coming up and growing and learning all this stuff, you just kind of throw shit at whatever and see if it sticks.
That's it.
And I've been telling Nate, hey, Nate, none of the guys that are flipping houses stay there for more than 5 to 7 years. They all transition.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to already get him to transition into something else, because when you got 5 or 7 builds, you got a background in remodeling and shit.
Yeah, I've done flips.
When you got 5 to 7 of those things going on, or 10,
it's a pain in the ass.
it makes your head spin.
It's a pain in the ass. And so here is where I was a realtor for a little while, and then I became a house wholesaler before I was in land, and I did start flipping houses. The natural growth process from like a realtor or a beginning investor in the residential sector is to go into flips, build some money up, right? This is highly taxable income though, right?
Yeah,
You
big
build
time.
you up some money, either wholesaling or flipping, and then put that into, passive real estate or becoming a money broker, a hard money broker, right? And so I know a lot of guys who have flipped 2,000 houses and now they're hard money lenders.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
they'd rather give it to the hustler doing
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And so it's kind of there's a roadmap from wholesaler to flipper to investor to and so.
So what would you tell our buddy Nate that's 26 at flipping houses?
Well, he's young and he's doing it at the right time. And so what I would tell him is that if he doesn't understand the idea of a wholesale transaction and doesn't know how to be a wholesaler, that's where he should take his money. If he's buying from wholesalers or realtor pocket listings, or if he's buying off the auction block, what he needs to do is just have a wholesale operation.
He needs to be panning for these opportunities while he's flipping too.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
panning for gold on everything.
He can wholesale one. Oh, I'll close on this and flip it. And this is how a real wholesale house company does it. All right, and I have lots of buddies that do this. They have a bunch of mail or callers or marketing going out. They're spending $5-10 grand a month in marketing. They have a couple of girls on the phone that are commission based, negotiating the deals, sending the numbers back to them. He'll underwrite them, formulate the offers, send them to the girls. The girls make the deals, and they're picking up 3 or 4 houses a month.
Yeah.
He's only going to flip one of them, and then he's wholesaling the other 3 away. And so being a flipper is just part of the formula. And so once you start to either have a mentor or get educated in this entire wholesale side of the market, right, which feeds the investment side of the market, the investor side of the market, because savvy investors want to buy at a wholesale price, not a retail. Right?
And it's just like any bank. You want to loan at a bank and you want to make their ears perk up, tie it to real estate.
Absolutely.
Aside from that, they don't want to. I mean, yeah, they'll do your car, yeah, they'll do your business, but when you walk into a bank and you say, hey, I've got this piece of property. It's 60% loan to value,
Exactly.
70%. Their ears perk up. They're ready.
Where
do we fund?
They need more to have more money with that type of loan to value, and so people that are out there looking for angel investors to start a small business, they're going down a path that there's not going to be a lot of opportunity. If you're trying to start a business, doing it in the real estate sector allows you to get investment capital because you can position yourself like as a wholesaler, finding a property, 50, 60 cents on the dollar. Now somebody's going to loan me this with no credit check. I can get a DSCR loan. I can get a hard money, private money, whatever suits the deal, whether it's a house or land. And and real estate doesn't care what ethnicity you are, what religion you are. It doesn't care if you came from nothing. It doesn't care if you came from everything.
Showing up on time with a firm handshake will get you a transaction done.
And knowing how to run your numbers.
Yeah.
And you can learn that.
Yeah.
You can learn all of that. Doesn't matter who you are.
And you teach that at what's the name of your school or program?
I have a program that I do for land wholesalers and investors. I teach ground up land wholesaling, and most of the links you're going to either find through my Instagram, I'm Rooster_Vance, or I have a website where I sell land on financing, and you can also find my education and ways to partner and invest with me at nocreditland.com.
And you're also finding buyers that might not have great credit deals to get owner financed from your sellers.
And so I do all kinds of creative things. I might write a finance contract on 10 acres for me to finance it, and I decide not to close on it, and so I'll market it to owner finance it, and then I'll write a mortgage wrap. So I'll just mark up the down payment and interest and step out of the situation. So that's one way that we do creative financing, and I'll never buy the land. So I can do a wholesale transaction.
That'll send you monthly revenue.
For 20, 30 years, whatever the note is. And there's guys that hold hundreds of those that they have originated, wrapped to somebody else, and they get $300. They made $7,000 at the table and $300 a month for the remainder of this this 30-year loan, which might be 27 years left on it because they're wrapping a few-year-old loan that might be in foreclosure.
They just got in the middle of the owner financing.
And so by saying I buy houses and I sell houses, and I buy cash fast, or I sell on financing, you position yourself to not just make money at the table, but create a spread.
So I have never heard that before. So, and I don't think I know everything, but I sure do know a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything, but I never heard that. And that to me is amazing because I get a lot of people that want to owner finance deals. And if you ask them and they're going to owner finance it at 3 or 4%, and then I tell Joe Bob, hey, it's 6%.
Exactly.
I need about 100 of these things.
Yeah, and you can even do it with no markup. You can just mark up the interest rate. Like you can find a house that's in pre-foreclosure, right? Then maybe they got a loan 3 years ago, and it's 4%, right? And we can't get that right now. So you look and you say, okay, they're asking $280 for the house. I look up on one of these data websites like PropStream, and I can see, they owe $265. They're just trying to get out of the house without bringing money to the table. And now I see them on the pre-foreclosure list. So I called them up. They're not selling their house. They're going to get foreclosed. And I say, listen,
they're not moving.
I'll give you $10,000, and I'll take over your note, right? And it may be an assumable loan, but we're not necessarily assuming it in a traditional way. We're going to perform what's called a mortgage wrap, right? And so I could then close on that property, take over their note. But if I have an end buyer there, and I can do that, I can turn around and advertise the property with seller financing, add whatever down payment I need to cover closing costs or any of that, and give me a markup if there's room. But there's certainly room over the 4%. And so if I just need to get the payoff on the house, I think I can get that in the market, I can offer no credit check financing, then I'll get it for sure. You can get it over retail price, right? So I can probably still mark it up. No credit check, come get this. If you give me this much down, here it is, and I'll give it to you at 9.9%. So I'll mark the 4% loan up to 9.9%. You can create $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a month in cash flow off of a couple $100,000 house if you do it right, And so, and there's guys out there that do this, the sub-2, the mortgage wrap thing, that's the Pace Morby thing. And it's a big deal, but it's certainly not as easy as it sounds. But if you position yourself,
well, you got to be looking for opportunities all the time.
Exactly.
And you can't just go out and say, all right, I'm going to go get a deal today. You've got to listen.
Yeah.
There's clues on what people are saying, or you're going to have to dig, like you said, on pre-foreclosure list, make the calls. But a great place to do this, I'm down in Port Aransas, Texas. Any retirement place, vacation places, these guys have had successful businesses. They will hold a note for you.
Damn right.
You could put a contract on theirs, but you've got to listen.
Yeah,
and this can happen. Right. This happened to me in a restaurant. A guy walked up to me and said, hey, do you know this person? And I said, yeah, I know him. And then he says, well, we got a house. It's been on the market for a while. We want to sell it. And I said, well, are you going to owner finance it? And sure as shit, $1 million house, owner financed.
Old men that don't need the money love to owner finance.
They do.
Right.
And they have a drive because they've been entrepreneurs. That's still a deal.
Yeah.
And what happens to these older gentlemen or whatever they are, during their life as they push, they're entrepreneurs, they still yearn for a deal. So during
Absolutely.
that time period of 2 months while you're doing this transaction, it's in their blood to make a deal.
Absolutely.
And they do it.
Absolutely.
And you pay out the deal and everybody's happy.
I agree. They it may be a property that they never even intended on selling. They were going to die with it. But if you come to them and you start wheeling and dealing, they're back in it, baby, and they love it.
And a great place to focus on that, if you were, is these vacation places all over the U.S.
Yeah.
Go eat at the restaurants.
I agree.
It's gold mine.
Those old men down there, they'll have portfolios, you know. And years back, I actually had a wholesale deal in Port Aransas on a stilt house.
Yeah.
Okay. It was damaged from the storm. I called the old man on a fourplex in San Antonio. I said, I don't want to sell the fourplex, but I got a house in Port A. I said, all right, I'll go check it out.
Who doesn't these days?
Oh, man. But, dude, this was the biggest mistake I ever made. I'm telling you about right here.
Oh, that'll be my next question.
I went down there. And this house needs to be gutted. It's a stilt house.
Is this after the hurricane?
Yeah, right after the hurricane, a year or so. And so the market was still kind of and right? And so this guy says, I'll take $220,000.
Oh, shit.
Bro. And I'm like, okay, I put it under contract for $220,000, and I tried to wholesale it for $250,000 for a long time. I couldn't get it. I thought I was going to be able to get it. And then I had so many other projects going that I didn't close on it. Those things are fixed up right now. They're $1 million.
Yeah, for those that don't know, you cannot find a house in Port Aransas for $250 right now. Not gonna happen.
No, this is walk to the beach. It was not far from the beer house, dude.
How many years ago was that?
This was probably, I don't know, 7, 8
6,
years.
yeah,
7.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That house immediately. I knew right then that I could put 100 in it, and it would have been worth $450 then. So it was already a little bit of a deal, but to have bought it, renovated it, and had 300 in it, 3.25 in it, and then just put it on Airbnb, right? And
that would have worked. You would have hit a home run during COVID.
That would have been a grand slam.
Yeah, especially during COVID. The Airbnb market down in, I think everywhere is softening up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Everybody was traveling after COVID, hiding or during and trying to go away. It's interesting to hear these guys that want to be in the real estate game, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, oh, I'll just buy it and do an Airbnb. And I don't know if the Airbnb is the way to go. I tried one of my houses down in Port Aransas. I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
I think you can probably cover your mortgage and your insurance maybe, but then you got people going through all your crap. So if you're thinking, well, let me get into the real estate game by doing one Airbnb versus wholesaling a property, I will beat you to the punch every time making money on wholesaling.
Yeah, because you're going to sell them the Airbnb. You're going to sell them the Airbnb and make $20,000 first off, and then they're going to have an Airbnb.
And they're stuck with a house.
There's one reason to have an Airbnb, and that is if you want to spend time at the beach twice a year or 3 times a year. It's something you do. Then you get a condo at Port A, and you block it off for the time that you're going to be there, and then you rent it out. So it's a break-even type of a deal. It pays for itself. That's when it's worth it to have an Airbnb. As a business model, now you're competing. If you're not one of the super hosts and all that shit, like it's not going to be what it was. Because,
and then you can't even keep your clothes at the Airbnb. You got to keep your cabinets locked. Every time you come back, 1 or 2 little knickknacks is broken.
And the reviews and fighting this and people canceling this, and it's not worth it.
No.
So
not if you're trying to make money in real estate. It would be easier to get with Rooster, have a conversation with him, and you'd be off to the races.
Anybody who's, here's the deal. There's a lot of mentors out there, and then there's a lot of gurus, right? And so, like, the fastest way to be successful in real estate is to learn from somebody who's successful. Mm-hmm. So a mentor in some way, whether you're paying or not, but you need to meet with them and understand, if it's really a fit and if they're, really living what they're selling and it's not bullshit. Because a lot of these kids, and for the most part, it's just the youthful. There's a lot of young gurus on there who, I was wholesaling houses when these kids were still on their mama's titty. You know what I'm saying? So
that's one of my things. Is they call it, maybe they want to call it business coaching. I call it education.
Yeah.
And I found a guy that I fit well with. But when you look at business coaches, mentors, or whatever, most of those guys might have just got a sample of what they've done, and then they fashion themselves as an expert.
Yeah.
In my case, I feel more of imposter syndrome. Like I walked into the Porsche dealership yesterday looking for a Porsche, and I'm like, normally when I walk into the car dealership for 20 years, I'm looking for the GM to ask, can I mow your grass? So
Exactly.
I have several restaurants that do several $1 million a year. I do probably $1 million a year just in real estate transactions. And I still feel like I have the imposter syndrome. But with the truth of the matter is, I'm doing more than 95% of the coaches that don't.
Absolutely.
They don't have a brain. So you've got to be selective on who you're learning from, and you're in the wholesale game. So if somebody is looking, how long have you been doing this?
I wholesaled my first house about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I wholesaled houses for 8 years before I even started wholesaling land, really, you know, and I wholesaled some apartment buildings, commercial, you know. But it was
doing
a
it
hustle.
day in and day out, full-time job.
Yeah.
Not just dipping your toe in there. So
Right.
if you're looking for an expert on wholesaling, Rooster's the guy to go to, and he's done it. And just like we've had a 30-minute discussion on, from one, I'm a real estate minor leagues, probably before that.
All roads lead to real estate, though.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make your money in real estate, you make it somewhere else, and then you put it in real estate.
Yeah.
You know, and so eventually you're going to end, if you have money, you're going to end up in real estate to some extent.
Well, when the guys do hit the money, the big league players, the NFL, NBA, when they
It's
do
real
hit
estate.
it, they start looking for who's the real estate guy.
Exactly.
Because they're putting,
That's it. And because they need the depreciation, right? That's what real estate, when you make a ton of money elsewhere, you're getting the depreciation also. And so it's a double-edged sword for you as somebody who makes a lot of money.
I hope I have to really worry about that soon.
Exactly.
I'm
That's
just
the
making
thing.
so much
You're
money.
like, yeah.
Rooster, I need you to take it all.
I know.
Owner
Buy something
finance,
with
all
it.
these
Exactly.
deals.
Hey, the buddy we were talking about that runs around in his chopper. He's done real well, and today he sends me a message. Hey, I need a shitload of acres in South Texas that I can finance to people, because he knows that.
Yeah.
Well, now they've grown a fund from $1 million to $5 million. They're going to cash it out. Now they can put it passively out on basically put it on the street, right, at 12% interest. So you can take $5 million, buy land at wholesale, subdivide it. Now you've got 15
Send it out to
million in notes
qualified
at 10
buyers.
or 12%. Yeah.
Or risk a little bit
Yeah.
and charge them interest.
That's it. It's 10, 12% interest. Just show me you got a job type thing.
Yeah.
And when you do this in South Texas, there's a lot of migrant families that are, second generation migrant families that are established here. They've made a lot of money in construction, all these guys, or there'll be families pooling their money together. So selling land in South Texas on financing is strong, and these people pay their bills. They're not, they're not like
They go to work at 8 and they leave at 6.
yeah, they're not Bubba the meth head. This is like these guys own a whole, they're from Mexico, second generation. They own a big landscaping company, and you know the kind of money you can make in that. You also know how the kind of work it takes. So these are hard-working people that pay their damn bills, right? So it's a great
Landscaping.
business. Like I said, we want to buy $1 million worth of land, split it up so we can write $2 million in notes at 10%. And so that is, and we do that.
But that shit
we'll do that in 6 months, though.
It does take time, but if you start and tiptoe into the wholesale game, he'll teach you how to do it, and it takes time.
Yeah.
But there's also people, when you start proving yourself to people and they see that you've done a few houses, these guys, I don't have a word for them, but they're smaller investors. They want to
private
send
money.
out 10 grand. They want to send out 50 grand. They want to send out 100 grand. And if you've proved yourself to them, they'll take a risk on you.
Absolutely. If you have a deal with some equity in it, and they've seen that you've operated a few deals, and they'll green light you. They won't check your credit. They're not checking your tax returns. It's an asset-based loan. And so because it's an asset-based loan, they base it on the equity you have in the property and your exit plan. Of course, they need you to have a little bit of experience as an operator. So if you have no experience, sometimes it's better to partner with somebody who uses hard money, do a deal with them, and then the next deal, that hard money lender will do a deal with you.
That's another route to success that I'd like to touch on is partnerships with people. I mean, it's just my uncle told me a long time ago, partnerships are ships that sink, but that has not. If it's a short-term deal on a real estate thing, I
What you
don't.
want is a joint venture.
Yeah.
You know, two companies. You're not going to form an LLC to do something. You're going to say my LLC and this LLC, and here's the joint venture. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to buy the houses. I'm going to put up the money to remodel them, get them done,
Yeah.
and then you're going to list them for. You know what I'm saying? And that's the joint venture. That way, there's a beginning and an end to it. And those ships don't sink; they make it from point A to point B.
Yeah, they do. And then guess what? It's time to split up after that, and
Yeah.
you make a decision to do it again
Yeah.
or
6 months
roll
later,
on.
hey,
Yeah.
want to do this again? I got another property. Look, yeah, let's try it again.
Yeah, and those are better than a long-term thing. I've got 2 partners on my businesses, and they've been fantastic. But that is a kind. I don't know if that's an isolated story, but my partners and I don't really argue about
Yeah.
much. We've been through shit, up and down. We've grown a business from basically 0 in sales to over 8 figures, and so there's a lot of shit that goes into that.
There's obviously some trust that was built. along that
Payroll's
line.
been due every
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mortgages have been due, and they're up, and they're allowing me to be here right now. They are running restaurants. We got good GMs, but long-term partnerships, from my point of view, tread lightly.
Every partnership has an end, so
Yeah,
if-
tread
you know what I'm saying?
lightly.
Yeah, and so we hope if there is a partnership, it's all about the operating agreement, right?
Yeah.
And that you have a complete buyout clause spelling out how everything needs to go down. You know, who's responsible for what debt at the end, everything.
And a lot of times they want to jump right into the partnership and head for it,
Exactly.
but you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
hit the brakes
Just
a
get
little
the
bit.
LLC. We'll get the operating agreement
Yeah.
going. You know, and 3 months later, there's no operating agreement, and then
Yeah.
some deal takes a shit, and it's, hey, how do I know? Ask me how I know.
I know,
You know what I'm
same
saying?
here.